we know that the longer people go without the vaccines, the more people will be infected. The more people that are infected, the more African Americans will die disproportionately. And so literally waiting equals more Black people dying from COVID. Hey there, how are you? Just fine, thanks. All right. I'm privileged, I feel privileged quite frankly, to be able to do a very small part to help to beat COVID. Recognizing the need to demonstrate the vaccine safety for all people, but particularly for African American community that has good reason to have skepticism because of the so many instances historically and currently of medical racism where we are not given the same treatment.
Reverend Matthew Watley is a volunteer participant in the NowThis vaccine trial. He's using his influence to change the narrative about vaccines among the Black community, where misinformation has circulated about vaccines and scientific fact is at times replaced with conspiracy.
The worst conspiracy would be for us to be dying the fastest and being willing to take the vaccines the least.
Black Americans are nearly 4 times more likely to be hospitalized from COVID-19 and 3 times more likely to die from coronavirus than white people.
Can you maybe share any stories or instances of congregants who have been hesitant about the vaccine or COVID?
I've had any number of conversations about the vaccine, both in my congregation and the community and my own family. Many of my own family members started off with, and it was always the same sort of list of issues. The general distrust because of a real history of medical racism that African Americans were saying either, no, I'm not going to take it, or I'm going to take a very long wait and see approach.
Reverend Watley began hosting virtual town halls and online discussions for congregants and clergy at his predominantly African American church in Silver Spring, Maryland. These discussions have since expanded to more than 600 churches nationwide.
So we started these town halls several months ago to try to get African American clergy up to speed on the science, where the virus came from, and how important it was for African Americans to take the vaccine because we're dying disproportionately from it. So we're very fortunate that a number of clergy have used them in their own broadcasts. One of the most powerful interactions I had with one of the members of our congregation happened on Instagram. One of my members tagged me after I posted something about the vaccine. And so rather than responding to her, I had a forum that was going to happen the next day. On the forum, I raised her question to one of the physicians. I got a post from her a couple days later thanking us for holding the forum, saying that she had signed her mother up and she felt really good about this decision.
The hesitancy largely stems from the reality that Black people in the U.S. have been subject to unethical or malicious medical care dating back to the 1700s. Take J. Marion Sims, known as the father of gynecology. In the 1800s, he conducted experiments on Black women without anesthesia and killed babies during his procedures. In the case of Henrietta Lacks, her cells were biopsied when she was being treated for cancer, then used for research without her knowledge. For some Black Americans, such unethical studies are in living memory.
People think of this as something that happened a long time ago, and it didn't. Tuskegee experiment happened literally 1 generation removed. People are so quick to think like, oh, this is just some crazy thing, let's just get over it. Well, it's very difficult to get over it when your people are still suffering from it.
Timothy Moore is a high school teacher and a self-described girl dad of 3 daughters. He's a Tuskegee, Alabama native, the site of the Tuskegee syphilis experiment of 1932. For more than 40 years, scientists experimented on hundreds of Black impoverished sharecroppers. The men thought they were receiving treatment for syphilis when, in reality, they were left untreated so scientists could secretly study how the disease progressed.
They were literally watching Black men die and become ill and then giving them placebos, saying it is a cure. Like, hey, I'm going to cure you, I'm going to help you. And it was just placebo, it was nothing. And it was just watching the effects of what would happen to the Black body.
The Tuskegee study has left a lasting impact on Moore and his family.
Some of my family members are still adamant about not taking the shot to this day, like any shot, the flu shot. My parents, my dad just took his first flu shot this year. There was, just a kind of a leeriness about going ahead and taking a flu shot. What would it do? What would be the consequences? Would it make me sicker?
Moore does not consider himself an anti-vaxxer, but he's unsure about the COVID-19 vaccines, and the decision of whether his daughter should get the shot weighs heavily on him.
And I think through a vaccine that possibly could give them some type of safety or some type of normalcy, it's very difficult as a father to say, no, don't take it. Because if I lose one of them, the pain I would feel from that is tremendous. But not being able to have enough of the facts of what may or may not be, is this thing safe to enter their body right now? It just seems very haphazard.
Currently, FDA-approved vaccines include Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson. All have gone through clinical trials and are approved by the FDA, with some having a vaccine efficacy rate as high as 95%. The data, however, has not deterred distrust.
The mistrust is definitely causing people to have vaccine hesitancy. And so we do know that African Americans have been disproportionately represented in terms of the symptoms of COVID.
Dr. Christy Lipford studies health disparities and behaviors, particularly as they relate to historical racist malpractice. She says these concerns of Black Americans should not be confused with the anti-vaxxer movement. What's the difference between someone who might identify as, say, an anti-vaxxer and someone with vaccine hesitancy?
A person who has vaccine hesitancy, their reasons behind not wanting to receive it, or maybe their concerns about receiving one, are maybe completely different from an anti-vaxxer. Essentially, these are transformative historical experiences that have really resonated with African Americans. And although it's been decades, ago, the impact of it, it really hits African Americans.
Dr. Lipford says that better representation can help turn around disparities in care.
We definitely need more people of color in medicine, but not only people in color, also people of color who are going to maintain a level of identity and a level of connection to the community. We need trustworthiness before trust.
In the U.S., Black physicians make up just 4% of doctors in the healthcare industry, according to the Association of American Medical Colleges. Dr. Randall Morgan is an orthopedic surgeon and the president of the Cobb Institute, a group that aims to eliminate racial and ethnic disparities. He joins calls for the hiring and recruitment of more Black doctors and health practitioners.
I have had patients and family who have expressed great concern about the care that they've received, or in many cases, the lack of care and the lack of understanding that they have received. Some have even suggested we need another historically Black medical school or another Black medical school. But the reality is we have to lean on the majority medical schools to do more than they have been doing to train Black physicians.
Today, Dr. Morgan echoes demands for more systemic change in the medical field. He joined Black healthcare professionals in publishing a love letter to Black people last Thanksgiving. The letter acknowledges the need for a population of more representative healthcare practitioners and culturally competent care.
We will keep you in our hearts while we work to create a world that is healthier and more than one that we know today. Love, America's Black doctors and nurses.
Reading those words, how does that feel?
Well, it's emotional because we've all worked our lives for this. And it's very difficult to see the stress that everyone is under at this time, and this over 400,000 deaths, of which we know that probably half of those deaths are people of color or more. And it just is a stark reminder that we have to stay the course, and we have to do some things that are not always comfortable for us.
Dr. Morgan hopes the Black community will venture outside of established comfort zones because representation is needed at every area of healthcare and medicine, including vaccine trials. Without adequate representation during development, researchers struggle to accurately measure the potential impact things like the COVID-19 vaccine will have on racial and ethnic minorities.
The common terminology we heard was, we don't know where this came from and what they're doing with this vaccine. And so one of the arguments I was able to make was, listen, this has been developed by African Americans. And so when we talk about they, we really mean us. And if we can't trust us, then we really are in trouble.
Watley says that while he considers himself in the field of saving souls as a reverend, he's grateful for the opportunity to potentially save lives by reducing vaccine hesitancy.
My ultimate message to people who still have hesitancy is to trust the science, to trust our leaders. When you look at our established leaders in the medical field and in every area of African American life, we've all come together and said, this is our only way forward.
He hopes that message will reach people like Timothy Moore.
Will you get the COVID vaccine?
That's the hardest question that you probably could ask me. I know right now the answer is no. The answer is no. Like, I am leaning towards no. And equally put, being an educator, I think I would take I'll take that back. There's no thing. I would do it for my kids. Like, I love teaching young folks and young people so much that I would take that risk. Slavery was just a couple of hundred years ago. Less than a few generations ago, a lot of our people were in chains. Tuskegee experiment, less than that. Literally just one generation back. So when you couple all of that and you see it around you every day and you see people suffer, then that is not irrational fear. That is a present day reality. These Black folks are not out here not wanting to be cured of COVID, not wanting to have health and safety from a pandemic. We don't want to risk our family and our loved ones. But it comes from a real place of anxiety and awareness. And that's the beautiful sorrow of being Black, because we're strong and we're courageous and we'll always find a way. But is that not the problem, that we always have to find a way?